Hello everyone and happy Monday. Welcome to another Adobe Live here in the UK, where you'll find us every day between 12 and 1, apart from the days where Adobe has a global day off at any rate. More on that later on. So if you're joining us from YouTube, that's just fine. But where you really want to be is at behance.net/Adobe Live, because that way you can get involved in the chat with our community here. And I'll give a shout out to some of those in a moment. But today I am joined by Irish illustrator and sensation Calderon. I'm trying to get the pronunciation of your surname correct, but I was fairly close, I think. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for that. I don't think I could live up to that introduction, but
well, you know,
give it a go.
People can check out your stuff and they can see really joyous, bright colours, fabulous stuff, really. And we'll take more of a look at that in just a moment. However, first of all, what I'm going to do is say hello to some of our community who are here with us. And we've got Caroline's here. Hi, Caroline. And Steve. Steve joins us from New Zealand, believe it or not. Comes along from New Zealand. And we have people who've been here the whole journey for this. Honestly, we really have. Sean's here. Guten Tag, Sean. We've got Gareth. Hi, Gareth. Sanjana. Hi. Sandrine. Hello. Good morning. That's a really expressive good morning from Sandrine as well. Fabulous. Plenty. So all of the gang are here. Oliver's here. Jackie's here. The fabulously talented Jackie Movar is here. And I think I just saw Andreas. Guten Tag, Andreas. There we are. Everybody's here. Don't forget, the chat is here for you to engage with each other and, most importantly, to pose your questions to Cathal and myself. Okay, and take it from there. So, for those who've never met you or seen your stuff, how would you like to introduce yourself to them, and what do you want to show us?
I suppose I'll just go with I'm a freelance illustrator. It'd be a good place to start. I might get my website up there. As you were saying, like, I love colourful stuff and play around a lot with colour. Sorry, my dog is snoring in the corner there.
That's all right.
So I started out, I studied fine art, so I'm not trained in graphic design or illustration or anything. So I studied that for 4 years, and then I joined a studio group where there were a couple of illustrators, because once I left art college, I was like, I don't know how to make a living from any of this. So I joined a studio group where there were a couple of illustrators called the Project Twins, and they kind of told me that illustration was a thing that existed. So kind of over, say, close to 8 years now, I've been.
Wow.
Okay. It happened 8 years ago when I moved out into the studio, and it's just been kind of tipping away slowly but surely.
There's some great stuff. It's mainly editorial work you do, right? Isn't it? It's mainly
editorial work, bit of corporate work, a couple of public commissions, and on the website there's a couple of bigger pieces in for schools and public arts commissions. That was a collaboration with a couple of other artists called Conor Carey and Peter Morris, or Peter McMorris, sorry. Get me. Well, that actually had to go on we had to put that on freeze for a while because of the lockdown, so that's not fully finished yet. So it's all sorts really, mostly editorial though, so that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today.
Have you done any mural stuff? I'm interested to know, because your work to me screams mural.
I've done recently. Most recent thing would be, I'll have a look for here. I'll go slow, so it's not too. You won't get motion sickness.
So you've got some wall art there. Yeah.
This is for Queen's University in Belfast. Did it with Us Folk in Belfast, and they got a few artists to work on other pieces around the university, and I was lucky enough to get the psychology department, and I was like, this is right up my alley. It has to look like anything. I've done a couple of bigger pieces and stuff, and Yeah, like I haven't done. I'm dying to do like an actual painted mural, but I've just done vinyl pieces and synth digital work. So it's still there's still a screen between the finished thing, you know. So looking
fab campus, that is, by the way, isn't it?
No, I've never actually been there.
I spoke there a few years ago, about 3, 4, 5 years ago, something like that.
Ah, cool.
For a really amazing campus. Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, yeah, it's just. Sorry, wrong one. Yeah, I'd kind of focus a lot on personal projects as well. Like, recently been doing Vivian Mayer. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm definitely butchering that. But just anything to do with characters and individual characters, especially, I'm kind of drawn to. And so personal projects is kind of where my style or aesthetic would be developed, and then that would feed into the commercial work. So yeah.
And I guess that's the artist in you coming out, right, with those things, with the heavy, yeah. I love that horse, by the way.
What?
I love that horse.
Oh, thank you.
It's fantastic.
That is, proportions on that are absolutely perfect. That's exactly what horses look like now. So that's a lesson in.
I think it's a magnificent horse. I love it. You say this is the exaggerated body proportions in relation to the head. That's the most consistent theme in your work, isn't it? That kind of developed, I'd say, about 2.5 years ago.
I started out on Illustrator because I didn't have a tablet. I didn't have a graphics tablet, so I was like, I suppose I'll just work with what I can. And so that kind of changed my focus on where I start an image. Like the composition became a lot more important, and the color selection became a lot more important once the actual kind of act of drawing was removed. And then once I got the tablet, it kind of fed into that.
Right.
And then kind of started focusing more on character illustration, and I was trying to do conceptual illustration. I was like, well, that's not for me. It doesn't come naturally to me. I'll just draw big shoulders and a tiny head. That's so it kind of came from looking at selfies, actually looking at people taking selfies, because they tend to be
with that extreme foreshortening with the short focal length.
No, so like I just did a couple of illustrations from that, and I just thought it was kind of funny that sometimes the shoulder was all be up like a boxer or something,
Yeah.
And, I just kind of exaggerated that, and then it kind of, for me, it became a way to represent how a character felt or something, like focus on, like, say, the hands or the shoulders to if they're defensive or if they're open, but that's it's just through exaggeration and playing around with shapes.
They're fab. They're going down well in the chat, by the way. There's a lot of people saying that they love the sneakers. Jilly loves the use of proportions. John really liked the deformation of the human body. Just going down well. Love the colors, love the composition. It's all good. Great perspective and proportion treatment. So there you are, fab. That's going down well.
Very good.
They are really striking, though. I love the one that's in the top left of the screen as I'm seeing it at the moment. With the numbers. Yeah. And the Rubik's
that was
Cube.
for. Did you ever see that show Maniac?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, no, I was just watching that, and I just thought the colors were like really hopped out at me, while I was watching it, I was like, I must draw you.
That treatment of the smoke is interesting. I like that.
Yeah, like this is kind of one of the pieces from a couple of years ago that kind of really, where I felt really comfortable with my style and approaching illustrations that way, like not being too worried about, hey, their shoulders are that is not a healthy human being. It's like it like this makes no sense. This guy with the Rubik's Cube, but I got a bit more comfortable with just playing around with shape and not caring if stuff fit, you know. And then I think this is also one of the illustrations where I really played around with color a lot, or one of the first ones where like it really clicked with me, where I was like, oh, I've never played around with gradients like this until this illustration, you know. And so
worked well.
Yeah,
worked really well. I like distorted bodies personally in illustration. I think too many people focus on trying to do a job that could be done really quickly by a camera. In a lot of cases, you know, and that it's no, I like it. Again, my personal opinion, but I do like it.
Yeah, like did you ever see that image of the horse drawn in like 5 stages, where like the head is really accurate, and then by the end of it, it's just like
a blob,
square leg. Yeah. That's the way I draw. It's like if I was to draw like realistically, I'd be like the eyes would be like, oh, I got the glint and everything, and then once I got to the ears, it would just be like, bah! You know. So I think it's more about my attention span as well.
Oh right, okay. Yeah, nice. I'll tell you what I really like about this, the one here in the Maniac illustration at the top there, that the colours. I like, there's a sort of a skeletal feel about that with the positioning of those. I mean, they're sunglasses, right? That's what's there, but there's something. I like it a lot. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I like drawing glasses actually for some weird reason, because just the reflection, you can really like that, how you can just pass through a character's head and just go straight to the background, you know. And so I don't really have anything else to add to that. Thank you.
So this was. Did you say this was done in Illustrator to start off with? Because you work in Photoshop now.
This is Photoshop. I started using Photoshop, I'd say about 4 years ago.
Right. Okay.
And then I was just getting my head around kind of changing from like vector to actual more, I don't know, drawerly. Is that a word? I know
it is now. That's how it goes with the Oxford English Dictionary these days. Somebody says something cool, they go, "Oh, writing that down. I've got a quota."
Kind.
Yeah, there you go.
So then just getting my head around all that, and then developing a style came kind of after getting used to the Wacom tablet and then drawing that way again. Because now I mostly draw digitally. I use the sketchbook the odd time for like really, really quick kind of like line drawings of just ideas and maybe layouts for compositions, but like the majority of the time it's just on Photoshop, you know. Yeah. So it's kind of.
And I think you're going to share some of your process with us today, aren't you?
I'm going to do that. How do I change this from Photoshop?
There we are. Fantastic.
Yeah, so I was just gonna go through like a rough idea of how I approach an editorial illustration. So I picked an editorial from '92, I think.
Right. Okay.
But it's about the art of creativity. I thought it was quite fitting. So what I do whenever I get an article, if you get an article, sometimes you don't, sometimes you just get like a synopsis of what it's about, but usually I get kind of the written text, and I go through it, kind of get a feel for what it's about, and then I'd look for words that kind of jump out to me visually, and they don't necessarily have to be like objects or characters or places, or, you know, like for this one they talked about like mundane routines and like inspiration, like it's all kind of abstract stuff. So like what I do would be I'd make like a word map. I try my best to keep folders as best as I can, because nothing worse than like not knowing what layer a little blue dot is on, and you have to go through everything.
Yeah.
No, it's the worst.
Organization is a good thing. It don't get any.
Yeah. Like I only learned that a while ago. Oh, I'm messing everything up now.
That's right. No, it's the best way. It's just a moment or two to set things up and to organize them, and it takes you far more to unravel something if you just like fire at it. So
like the way I draw would be I draw in like sections. So like I draw on a solid block color, then I do the shading, and then I do the gradients on top of that. So it would all be separate layers, so that if I felt something wasn't working, I could just remove it or edit it as a separate layer, like, you know.
Yeah.
So like I do like a rough word map, you know. It will be like I'm going to be very embarrassed by my spelling here, but I do quick stuff like that, you know. Yeah. If anybody else is looking at it, they'd be like, "What is going on with this lad?"
But as long as you can read it back, that's
that's it. So the article that I picked was talking about letting go, the lag on my and inspiration and muses and stuff. And I might even do a quick illustration, just like a quick sketch of something. I'll draw a lad there. Hello. And so that would be the start of my process for an editorial. We're just trying to make connections that way without going too deep into like visual ideas, because I definitely have this habit of kind of getting stuck on an idea, and I try and progress it to the end when it's not necessarily the type of one that I should go with. So like I kind of have to be a little bit disciplined and just like, okay, maybe we'll come back to that. We'll put a pin in that. And just to try and get as many ideas as possible. But we're not going to do that now because we don't have time.
No, but I mean, as long as we know that is the first step in your part of the process, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And so I'd be messing around with words, drawing words. Like there was inspiration, there was what other words? Yeah, boredom was a big thing. I liked the article because it goes very positive about boredom and letting yourself be bored, because I have a habit of not getting bored. I get distracted, so the idea I came up with was just, let's see if I can get this up. I use an app called PureRef.
I use PureRef.
Yeah.
I use PureRef, and I also use Inboard app as well.
Inboard, what's that?
Inboard app is another reference application. But I use PureRef when I'm working on a single screen, because it floats above everything else. And if I'm on a multi-screen, I use Inboard app. That Inboard app's like 19 quid, I think, from the App Store. And PureRef it's donationware, isn't it? So it's whatever you.
Yeah.
Like $7
I didn't even know about that Inboard app. I just found this randomly. And it's kind of like, to be honest, I don't use it a massive amount because I don't use that many reference images. I might pick, maybe a position from an image that I like, or a pose or something, but like I wouldn't go crazy. This is kind of an exaggeration, but this is kind of the idea of like those kind of bored pictures of like people in classical paintings. For some reason I just think they're kind of funny. And so I was just going to go with that and kind of develop that into an idea. And there's Anthony Jr. That image is unreal. Where is that now? I'll make that.
Do you know, I'm still amazed that with so many digital artists that use Photoshop, that Photoshop hasn't got a floating reference window, because some other applications do have that. It would be a really nice thing to have, but
because like
usually it doesn't.
Usually, because I use so few, like I might use it for a big project. Like I usually just start off, the first thing I do when I'm starting a project is I set up a folder for like all the resources that I use. Like if I'm setting up a color palette, or if I'm doing something like that, like a reference image, I'll just throw it into the resource folder, and so I know where it is and I don't have to go looking for it. But it might be an idea to do something like that.
I'm just going to just quickly answer a couple of things in the chat while you're getting set up there. People are asking what PureRef and what Inboard App are. They're both reference image applications, so you can drop reference images into them. PureRef can float on top of Photoshop, so you can have reference things. You can zoom in and out. You can change the priority. Some people do use Pinterest to do that sort of thing. The only thing is Pinterest, of course, is a social network, so you've got all of that to consider as well. So whereas these aren't, they are applications whose only job it is to display reference imagery while you're working on something. So there you go. That's your homework for this week, kids.
So I'd start out with like really rough sketches, like that would be, I'd actually be pretty happy with that, to be honest. Send that off, see what they say. And I don't, I just go as quick as I can. And then usually something kind of just, a composition usually kind of just comes out of just what I'm thinking and what I'm working and what I'm doing and what I'm making, you know. Like it's kind of organic to an extent, you know, and then see what I can get out of that. So there was, I wanted to keep it somewhat related to like the way I work, so it would be digital. So I wanted to keep the cursor in. And there was a quote in the article that said, creativity is like cutting holes to see through.
Right. Yeah.
So, not gonna lie, I already have this image made.
No, it's all right. We've got plenty of time. So no, take it nice and easy and just chat. So just out of interest, on a personal no, you're living in France now, right? Yeah.
Over in France land at the moment.
Yeah. Where about? What sort of region are you in? Because we have one of our community here, Sandrine. She's a French native. She lives here in the UK.
Yeah. I'd be southeast. It would be Grenoble, near it's. Yeah, it's about 2 hours from the Italian border, I think.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's nice. It's a nice place. It's I'm liking it. You know, tipping away. Nice weather. Better weather in Ireland, but.
But Ireland is so beautiful, though.
Stop! Oh, you make me homesick.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I kind of got hooked on the idea of the cursor, and then this is literally how I do quick concepts. Just nobody knows what I'm drawing, but I know that's the head, and that's the shoulder. But so I got kind of hooked on the idea of the cursor, and then I kind of switched from the quote to the words boring, mundane, and inspiration, and so I kind of changed it around to try and develop a character that looked bored, you know, like just kind of loitering around. I like drawing people who are waiting for things, you know, like at the bus stop or something, you know. Like I think it's really interesting how different ways people wait, and you know they always cut a interesting silhouette. So kind of played around with that, the idea of the inspiration, like that Michelangelo painting.
Right. So like the creation of Adam.
That's the one.
Yeah, so where so almost like the jolt of divine, the divine spark, that sort of thing.
By the hand of God.
Yeah.
But it's a cursor from Adobe.
I like it.
Yeah, so what am I saying? Yeah, so I lay down like a rough idea of composition, and for this one I actually found it really tough because I like to work in a square format now. It's like because Instagram really, but I also kind of just like it as a shape to work in. You
I
know,
like to photograph square because it makes you. I photograph in whatever frame I've got on the thing, but I like to think compositionally square. One, because of Instagram, but two, because you really do have to think about what you're doing in a square, don't you, to get it so it doesn't look dull.
Yeah, and like, do you ever hear the director? Do you know Ozu? He did Tokyo Godfathers. Oh no, Tokyo Story. He always worked in square format back in the day, and he just said, "I don't see the point in changing it. You know, it's what the human eye sees." So he just played around and he just made lovely compositions in it. I don't know. I just think it's a happy accident that Instagram kind of made me directed me to this format as opposed to, like, I used to start on A4. You know, I was like.
The first camera I had was 110 square format. So,
nice.
I just I was going to buy one of those the other week. Actually, I saw one. I thought, do you know what? I saw it on eBay.
Nice.
I might pick one up.
Yeah. So I'll just go through a couple of the kind of sketches that I've already done, and maybe go through a couple of the ideas that I was thinking of. So,
yeah.
Again, pure rough, but you can kind of see an idea of composition. Like, I kind of did a rough grade. I don't even care about rulers or anything. Like, I just do that. And then there's a character here. Try to center it, have all the action in the center. So I was initially going to have multiple characters with different tools from Adobe, but kind of playing around with that quote, cutting creativity cuts holes to see through.
Yeah, so I can see your eyedropper and your selection tool.
Yeah. But then go through that, and then developing that even a little bit more, a little bit tidier. I do multiple iterations and stuff.
Yeah, no, we've got plenty of time to go through them, so don't worry about that. We can pause them.
But just in general, like it's all minute little changes that a lot of people like would even care about. But
yeah,
then this is me getting bored, and this is another idea I had with just the character walking with the tools and stuff. And I'm going to try and move past the sketching because it gets a bit monotonous. This is another one. I
find this really interesting, actually, to see how, to get an insight into how you develop your work. Yeah. I think it's fascinating to.
Yeah, like the reason that I stay so long on sketching is just because, like, as I said, I kind of get a bit of tunnel vision sometimes, and it's just, I think it's good for me to just not even touch color or like try and finalize a sketch until I've kind of exhausted a good few options, So like pure rough. And there's a guy sitting down. I'm just going to wait until I get to I'm going to go through until I get to the image.
There's a few comments from the chat I'll give out to you. So Sandrine's saying there's less space for boring compositional tricks in a square format. Catherine is saying that she's loving the sketching up, and Sandrine's also saying it's really striking how it comes from a very free-flowing drawing style to a neat, precise end outcome.
Yeah, like it's very much like sanding down the rough.
Yeah.
In terms of the images that I make, and this will be kind of where I really started to develop the idea of like the creation of Adam and thing for the boring boards and just chilled out kind of waiting for inspiration to come idea.
Yeah.
And so this is where it kind of started with that, just a lad chilling out on the chair, and it's just playing around with poses and like how stuff feels. Like, it bothered me that this hand, sugar, I didn't know where to put it.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times, just like,
Yep, see it moving around in the previous iterations. Caroline's saying exactly what I was thinking, actually, in that this is still very kind of fine arty in a way, your approach to it. You can tell you've got a fine art background with the approach to it.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Jackie's saying it's almost jazzy. Feels very jazzy. That's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I really like that comparison. Yeah, so a lot of it is just once I kind of get to a pose that I like or a composition that I like, I just really mess around with what I can do with that, especially when I have the time, because sometimes with an editorial, the turnover might be 2 days, 3 days. So it's, like I had the luxury of time with this one, so I started messing around, and then I started playing around with the idea of him lying down, and no, it didn't work for me. There was something not right. The hand was still bothering me. Just everything about it was like, why is it so far this side? So
but to a certain degree you have to, right? Don't you? Because of the pointer. You've kind of got to recede back into there a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah. Like this is kind of where liberties are taken by me about anatomy. It's like, all right, the hand's not working there. Okay, his hand starts up here. Like it doesn't bother me that his elbow is here, his shoulder is here, but for some reason this arm is tiny. It doesn't, like, whatever. Composition takes priority for me, not accuracy. And then I keep playing around with this idea until I decide to... the character is steadily like leaning up that way. And I'm trying to work out the background as well at the same time. I usually, when I'm sketching, I usually start with character and then follow with the background, and then with the color, I start with the background and go to the color, or to the character, So it's kind of a funny little mirroring. I don't know what's in this. It's just more sketches. Loads of sketches, you can see that there. This is where I'm starting to finally get to happy with the position.
Yeah.
And so he's leaning up there now, and we'll get to the final one so we can get he's back in his chair there for some reason. But we'll go to the revisions. So I was happy with this pose, and this is where I kind of revise it. I select pose, select positioning, and then I start really kind of focusing in on the details of the character, like the clothes, the folds, and like I'm a big fan of clothes with big folds.
Yep.
And okay, 1 second. Yeah, so that's what I'd use pure ref for a good bit. Just I'd find images of like clothing or something that I like, because I'm not particularly a fashionable person, so like I follow fashionable people on Instagram, and they tend to be wearing big jumpers now, so that's good for me. So yeah, I think you can actually see the guy that I based this clothes. Not him, not you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just big jumpers, like black baggy clothes, stuff that I used to wear in the 90s. But just stuff with like dynamic kind of looking clothes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. To me it does. Yeah.
Get rid of that, and then we'll go to the actual finished sketch. This is the resources folder. Then get rid of you and get rid of you. So this is the image that I kind of finished up on. Like I wanted to kind of maintain the the appearance of him lying down, kind of make the connection between the reference image, the inspiration image, and like something that kind of looked more bored, you know, like and loitering, you know. So he's just some lad leaning up against the wall waiting for something to happen, and then all this, all the tools and all the colors start coming in. So the next thing I would do would be, when I'm selecting a color palette, I usually start with one color that I know that I want to work with, and then I kind of base everything off that. And I tend to have periods of certain color schemes being very predominant in my work. So like I'm a big fan of this blue at the moment. So I started out by, one second, where is this? First of all, I selected the background. And I'll do that quick just to give you an idea of how I do it, because when I'm selecting the color scheme of an image, I do it really rough at the start, just like sketching.
Right.
But just, I want to try and get it nailed down as quick as possible. So I'll just do that, and then you might even just, you know, just not even fill everything out, just throw in a color, maybe imply grass, nothing like the implication of something. And then, like, I'll do this until something clicks, which doesn't really take very long. Once you have a good idea of the colors that you want to use, then the colors that come naturally will follow, you know, if that makes sense.
Right.
So this will be, my coloring selection thing, and that will probably lead to something like this. Get rid of that.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and this is all pretty organic. Like the whole process for me is pretty organic. Like, although I've selected these colors, it's still just a starting point. It might adjust slightly. It won't go crazy, but like it would, main points would still stay the same. But I don't tie anything down until it makes sense. You know, even this didn't fit for me, and then.
It's still, it really is a very, very painter-like approach, though, to the way you're doing it. It is almost as if you're actually working.
Yeah. There's definitely
with a real medium. Yeah.
It's. I definitely have that view of like Photoshop, like as opposed to say Illustrator. You know, it's like the pen tool doesn't care what you want to do. It does what it does really well. But you know, like it is what it is. But I find in Photoshop that you can find your own way to figure stuff out and your own approach a lot easier. Not necessarily saying that Illustrator you can't. It's just, I just think there's a lot more to explore and a lot more room to play around in Photoshop. And maybe that's kind of why it feels a bit more painterly, because I'm. Like in my head, it is kind of like a physical thing, you know, like the layers are actually layers in my head, you know. Yeah. But
you have to plan for Illustrator. You don't have to plan.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a shape that's going to be filled with a color, then you have to construct the shape and then consider the color after that in Illustrator. Which works for a lot of things, but not for everybody.
Yeah.
And in Photoshop, if you just think, I just want to lay down some color like you did just a moment ago. While you can do that in Illustrator, it's a lot easier in Photoshop.
Yeah, and I think it's just whatever works for whatever job, you know. Like, I kind of lost what I was going to say there. And color scheme. So when I'm moving on to color, then I'll just go through the actual full color image. I don't want to show you. I would pick like blocks of colors. So my starting image was sugar. Making hands of this.
That's all right. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Sugar, go away.
Wow.
This is a disaster.
It's not. We're all good.
Oh no! Just there's a tiny little bit of lag on my computer, just the smallest bit, so that when I click one, it just goes, it just waits, and then I click it again. But yeah. So this is where I would kind of get into the nitty gritty, and I'd get really focused in on getting the details right and like it. I'd use the Kyle T. Webster brushes as well that are provided on.
I know that you used to have to pay for separately back in the day.
I actually bought them. I bought the mega pack. Before it came, like a year before it became a part of it, and I was like, well, yeah, he deserves it.
He does.
Yeah. So I'd have.
He's a lovely guy, Kyle is. He's really, really nice.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of his talks. Was he on that Creative Pep Talk or something?
Yeah, I mean, he's on a lot at the moment. He was actually on. I think he was on Adobe Live. I think it was yesterday. Either yesterday, or anyway, I think it was yesterday. He was on and doing some stuff around fresco. Have you tried? Do you do any drawing on it on devices or?
No, I tend to just have my workspace as my workspace. You know,
yeah.
Otherwise, I like to be able to close the door, the metaphorical door, and just kind of step away from it. So I kind of like having a tablet that is just stationary.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'd love to give fresco a go, and
Sanjana's just helping me out, by the way, and telling me it was Friday. I think that's.
Oh, for Kyle T. Webster.
For Kyle's thing, yeah.
Ah, cool. I think
yeah. So Sandrine saying she loved to draw along with Kyle. Kyle likes doing that stuff. Draw along with Kyle. It's lovely.
Oh, that's cool, actually. Yeah. Oh wait, no, I think I did see that advertised. All right, not advertised. That's probably the wrong word. But yeah. So I use his brushes mostly. I have about 10 that I like. 10 that I really like, and I don't like using the paintbrush or the paint bucket for stuff like this because it leaves this kind of line.
Yeah, you can actually tune that so it doesn't do that. Next time you use the paint bucket, what you can do is you can take the threshold down.
Oh, yeah?
And then it'll so it's 32 by default, which is 32. Well, actually I was going to go into the technical side of that. We'll not do that. 32 is just the default. It can go up to, it can become more tolerant and less tolerant. So if you increase that, you'll notice a slightly
right. I get you. So it's like adjusting the tolerance on the magic wand or something.
Exactly. Yeah
I actually still just like coloring it in, just like coloring it in. Just because you get with the brushes, there's still kind of a remnant of texture, so I really like that kind of element of it.
My kids think I colour in for a living. They think that's my job. They have done for a long time.
Hey man, don't knock it.
My dad colours in.
My dad will beat up your dad. It's like probably
with his pencils. My dad will colour in your dad.
Yeah. He colours in at a professional level.
It does, yeah. Professional colourer.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna do these rough. Probably should have separated everything because it does take.
No, we're good. We get the idea. It's good.
Yeah. So I'd it would be neater, obviously, but I would do everything else in separate layers and in separate folders. So like for the jumper, I'd have jumper folder, and that's where the shade for the jumper will be. If I usually I pick one solid color for shade.
Yeah.
But sometimes it will be kind of more based around the actual color of the object. So it's kind of more, I don't know what you'd call that, but that would all fit into the objects folder, and just like as we were saying earlier, just to be a bit more organized, and it's good for revisions, like and feedback. It's just like, oh, can we have that, hand a little bit pointing up a little bit more? I got you. That's the hand folder. So
of course, doing it that way, if you see, that's a real advantage in that sort of level of granular workflow, because doing it that way, if it was something like, can you move the hand and arm up a bit, you could always just puppet warp that and it would be job done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever used that feature. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. No, you could actually make it wave. Whatever, yeah.
Just don't make me change the shape. So that's kind of how I would approach the solid colors. It would be separate folders for separate objects, and then I'm just going to show you the full color altogether. Just go through, because there's gradients and everything. Oh, and for the palette, I usually kind of work as I go, or work on the palette as I go. So I kind of just have a separate layer, and I just draw in, if I like this red, I'll just go bloop. But then for kind of like bigger commissions with more pieces and stuff, I set up a separate project palette, and so that I don't have to go messing around and stuff.
Have you ever heard of the Color Constructor app?
Is that Constructor? I have the Color Capture app.
Right. So there's that on the phone, but no, there's something. It's not from Adobe. It's from another vendor, but it's called the Color Constructor, and that's a thing that gives you a whole load of panels. You can put an input color in, and then you can see tonal variations, value variations around it. It's really interesting. I'll see if I can find that and drop it into the chat actually while we're here.
That'd be good. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. Yeah, but I actually just got the Color Capture app a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't used it on an actual piece yet, but it's so cool the way that you can just select.
Well, I'll keep that on my. I'm going to paste it into the chat here now. But like when we're after the show, I'll send it across to you as well, so you can have a look at it.
Perfect. That'd be great. I'll show you the full color one now. Right.
And that is actually a question. Have you ever animated any of your illustrations? Catherine's just asking.
I've done it on Photoshop. Like I've done, I'll show you a couple of. Where is? I've done kind of simple. These should be animating. Where is it? Simple animations on Photoshop, and at the moment I'm learning After Effects, and that is a dense program, but so I'm hopefully over the next couple of months going to have a couple of where did that stop? A couple more animations from After Effects. But yeah, Photoshop is where I do simple looping GIFs, nothing too crazy on. One, there you go. I think that one keeps looping. Oh
yeah.
Yeah, so it's usually plants waving on Photoshop, just because it would take too long for me anyway to do anything more in depth, but it's really good for learning how the basics and to think about how to animate, because like some things you might just be able to reverse it, or like starting from the middle might be better than starting from the end, But,
I understand exactly what you mean there. In order to create your loop, Sophie. Yeah.
So I have done animation, but not that much. But I want to know is the answer.
Oh, there you go, Catherine. So now you know.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the finished image from that editorial that I was working on. And where am I now? I've added too many.
I love that you've got the pixelation of the old.
Yeah, that's
tool
what I did into like literally just I took one and I used the magic wand tool and I just drew the colors that I wanted and with the brushes to get the textures that I wanted and stuff. So yeah, I do like those pixelated cursives though. I think they're definitely nice looking.
Yes, indeed they are.
Like especially because my illustrations tend to be kind of very roundy and kind of like almost
good contrast.
Then just having like those sharp corners of like it's really not the first time I've used it is what I'm saying. Yeah, so I'll pick one thing to go through. Character, and I'll go with the pants.
Yep.
So we'll just go through the different layers. Yeah, so I'd start off with just a solid blue, and or whatever color I'm going for, and then the next thing I would usually do is the shade, just kind of because that will inform everything else that comes next. Like say the smaller details will wrap around the creases and stuff, and then I think there's an extra little bit of blue there for the bottom of the pants. But then it's the gradients would be always the last element that I'd focus on, just because only once I have the color palette selected is when I can really decide where I kind of want to imagine the light source coming from. And so I tend to just have the whole image as solid colors and the solid colors that they're meant to be, and then I do all the gradients at once so that they kind of respond to each other as opposed to like individually.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be there's another gradient.
Have you ever printed any of these as risograph prints? Risograph.
I've done a couple of calendars with this or projects with I submitted work into this crowd in Dublin called Damn Fine Print, and they do risographs. So I've done a bit. I definitely want to do more because some of the stuff you can make out of that is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and I mean with the vibrancy of your colors as well. They really can, like those colors can like keep a neon quality almost, Yeah. So like I mean they can because they have literally neon inks, which is they're
lovely. They're absolutely class.
Yeah.
So.
Because we have Gabriella on here. We've had Gabriella on here from Risotto, which is a Glasgow-based operation that she runs, and she makes some amazing. I could just easily see one of these. She has a little club called the Riso Club, and you get a little pack of. I haven't got one to hand actually. I can see them from here, but I can't reach. You get a little pack if you're a member of this club, and it sends you out like half a dozen of the latest Riso prints each. Really nice. Yeah, I think we're going to have her back on shortly. I think which would be great.
Definitely give that a look. Like the color separations and like it's an absolute science once you get down to it. Like the gradients and the color separations and
production's a whole different ball game.
It's just like
it is.
That pink is not pink enough or something,
Yeah.
But it's a lovely way to print, and definitely want to try and do a couple more. Yeah. So
Stuart's just asking a quick question. Do you texture using brushes or from image sources and masking? Do you build your textures?
I use brushes. I
Yeah.
used to use that kind of image sourcing and overlays and stuff, but it just over time it eventually just kind of trickled out of my style. You know, like see now with the shades, it's pretty simple to just like just pop in an extra layer. You know, to just do that. You know, like the pressure, like adjusting the pressure on the Wacom tablet and stuff is like it's easy enough to just do that. And I kind of like it more. I think sometimes I'm just not able to incorporate it very well into my work, you know. But when other people do it, I'm like, that is so cool. But I use brushes anyway. And I'm trying to think of any other times that I really mess around with textures. Yeah, just even there is just the pen tool just made it massive. And then a light kind of, wow.
No, fantastic. Right, let's just see if we've got any questions. How have we got? We've got just a couple of minutes left of natural time just here. See if there's any questions I've missed. People are really enjoying this though. Love this one. Could be an album cover for a jazz band. There is something about it, and I think one of our other guests, I don't know if you know him, Gaurav Takali, was on a while ago. There's a lot of similarity in the not perfect similarity, but some hints of similarity between the colours in his work and yours. Yeah. No, generally though, people just really, really enjoying that. A couple of discussions, small micro discussions about the paint bucket. And apparently Stephen Booth has a project called Kyle Made Me Do It. So I'm going to check that one out and take a good look at that. Should be really good. Stuart's saying inspiring stuff. Catherine's saying wonderful work. Cathal, it did come back. Do come back for part 2. It's been inspiring. So we'll have to have you back again. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, it was really fun.
And how? Oh, this is a good question. And it's always, I should imagine this one is as difficult for you to answer as I would find it myself as well, but because it's a common question, how long does it take you to make these things? To quote Sanjana, she said, how many days or hours does it take to make these lovelies? That's what she said.
6 years. It honestly depends. Like this one, like, I'd say from the concept, like coming up with the concept was the toughest part for this one, and then actually doing the colors and finishing it up was fun, you know. Like, and I could have got that done in about a day, maybe. Yeah. But because it was for this and that, I was like, okay, people are going to see this, and I'm going to be in the room when they see it, or the virtual room. I was like, I better spend a bit of time on this. But it kind of depends mainly on deadlines. Like if it's for a commission, you know, like for a personal project, I'd say take as much time as you need really to be happy with the piece. But you know, a deadline is a great motivator for, okay, this will work. I can make this work, you know. So like a standard editorial piece for me would be like maybe 3 days with feedback and stuff and back and forth, you know, 3 or 4 days max. As long as there wasn't a crazy amount of feedback or, you know, like delays in emails and stuff. But yeah,
how do you gather that, by the way? How do you gather your feedback? Is it basically here's a link to this online, have a look at it, or do you email it out? Or
like I'm represented by JSR in London and Usfolk in Belfast, and if it's going through them, it would just be emails, and I just send over an image. First, I'd send over like 3 rough sketches, and then it would be usually, if there's enough time, if it's not a super quick deadline, I'd send over a rough colors version, and then they go, oh yeah, go for that, or we kind of want to avoid these colors, and then it's just the full colors, and that's it. It's pretty much, there's no real, it's just emails.
Yeah.
And we transfer the ad time.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Fantastic. Well, everybody has enjoyed that. I've loved spending the hour with you. It's been really grand. Thanks ever so much.
It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, no, it's great. And hopefully we'll see you again for another one like this. Would be great to see that. Now, for those of you that are watching, don't forget you can join us in our very own Discord, where you can come along and chat all day and all night to your heart's content. And don't forget, you can also post your versions of your own work there as well for discussion with the community. So do that. Any parting words, Cathal, before we go, or?
Nothing comes to mind, I suppose.
Nothing comes to mind. Okay, that's great.
Something about penguins.
Well, you have to be steady like the penguins. That's true.
Yeah, no. Thanks for having me. That's pretty much. That's pretty much it. I really enjoyed doing it. Really enjoyed working on this piece, and really liked showing everybody. It's
great stuff. A lot of fun. Thank you ever so much for joining us. And thanks, everybody. Don't forget, you can join us every lunchtime this week between 12 and 1, Monday through Thursday, although Friday is the Adobe Global Day off. So just a short set this week. Until then, see you next time. Stay creative. Stay safe.